The Trump administration is continuing to dismantle environmental protections even as COVID 19 has frozen the economy. Now, in fact, federal agencies so far have eased fuel efficiency standards for new cars, frozen rules for soot air pollution, proposed to drop review requirements for liquefied natural gas terminals, continued to lease public property to oil and gas companies, sought to speed up permitting for offshore fish farms, and advanced a proposal on mercury pollution from power plants that can make it easier for the government to conclude that regulations are too costly to justify their benefits, even if some of these regulations are actually opposed by the industry themselves. The efforts to deregulate are opposed by the industry themselves. Now, the government has also relaxed reporting rules for polluters during this pandemic. This is what they're trying to do, right? So, as people are distracted, as people are suffering, big polluters are actually getting a win. By the way, air pollution is one of the reasons many people suffer from asthma right now. Those people then go on to be more susceptible to respiratory viruses like pneumonia and, yes, COVID 19. So keep that in mind, right? So now the Trump administration is doing this, of course, to help their corporate donors, and they're doing it in two different ways. They're rescinding and rewriting some rules and writing others in ways that could be difficult to rescind later on. Say if a Democratic president or a progressive president gets into office and tries to actually do something about the environment, they have these rules written in such a way which are very, very difficult to change or get rid of. One example, of course, is putting in a fairly weak rule, right? Using the EPA to put in a weak rule, and then using that as justification from a rules perspective or a regulatory perspective, preventing them from putting in a stronger rule in its place. So, I mean, it's just many of the tricky ways Republicans, conservatives attempt to prevent any sort of rigorous regulation of these industries. Not only that, but you have oil bailouts as well, or fossil fuel bailouts, which we've already seen about $75 million in aid money going to these corporations. Now, both former Democrats and Republicans turned lobbyists are trying to reopen the country in order to get that demand back up since their donors have lost money. There's recordings, of course, of them meeting with JP Morgan. It's a meeting between JP Morgan Chase and Akin Gump, or is it Morgan Stanley? Sorry, it's Morgan Stanley and Akin Gump, which is, of course, the primary lobbying firm that represents oil companies. They're people that they had in Congress. Former congressmen are now lobbyists on both sides. And now they will be sent back to lobby in favor, of course, of reopening the country too early in order to get oil prices back up. So, look, whatever goodies Trump is going to give the oil industry before the election might even be defended by some Democrats in Congress who have been lobbied by their buddies, by their friends. But understand that Republicans, of course, have been going after regulations. They were going after it before, but now under the shadow of COVID-19, they're doing so, more openly because they get this cover in the news. Now, they should be helping people, but instead, they're helping their donors, their friends in big oil. And so, look, we've got the news that's dominated by, the mounting death toll, right? 80,000 people have died from coronavirus. That's in America alone. Who's going to notice a few $100 million going to the fossil fuel industry while that's happening? Exactly. That's why that's what they're literally banking on. You not noticing that you're being robbed. They're taking money that could help you and your family, taxpayer money, and they're handing off to corporations that don't actually need it, and also deregulating to make the air more unhealthy so that when things open up, when people do get back to work, look, we've seen in China, as soon as they started reopening, here comes that smog right back. Instead of helping big oil and these corporations, we should be stripping them of subsidies and using them to launch a new green energy program, like a Green New Deal, so that the new normal will actually involve less air pollution and less reliance on the world oil markets and more renewable energy produced domestically from solar, wind, and geothermal sources. We can actually do that. It's just whether or not we have the political will to do so. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.